We're going to talk about money again. I like to talk about money. What is it? And what people don't understand is, and we were talking a little bit before we turn this on, there has to be something behind it. So the idea of how money is supposed to work is basically a measurement of a bartering system. And I'm going to kind of describe how. Well, what would you say?
I got to interrupt. I'm going to set you up for a second. Jesus was a carpenter. Okay, he made chairs probably sometime, and it took work and labor to make that chair. You have to cut things in a certain length, so all 4 or 3 legs are just so. And if you don't, you're going to have to adjust, and that takes more labor. And what you're looking at in a chair is labor. Every one of us has to create some sort of value in some manner. And we were talking earlier, I'm kind of jumping on the chair idea, and I know you have a story about that. But if, let's say we're on an island and the government ships in and gives $20,000 to everybody on that island, guess what? People are going to buy extra chairs, even though they already have enough chairs. They'll just buy. So because they have extra money, they spend it. And when you do that, the prices go up. And I know that you have a concept you want to talk about.
Yeah. Well, first I would say, you talked about labor and you hear the saying, which is absolutely not true. And that is, time is money. No, it's not. Time is not money. What do I mean by that? What do you mean time is not money? Everybody knows time is money. Everybody just repeats it. No, it's not. If I spend my time sitting on the couch playing video games, that is not money. That's just wasted time. It's not money. Now, if I spend my time laboring, if I spend my time making that chair, cutting the wood, and I'm putting my labor into that chair, that is money. So time spent laboring is money, not just time, because you can waste time. Time is the beginning of using your labor to create something. And sooner or later, something has to be created and it has to be sold. That's what makes the economy go around. So yeah, with the chair, I've talked to a number of little groups of kids, and they get it when I'll hold up a chair, and I'll say, "What is this?" And they all say it's a chair. And I say, "No, it's not. It's not a chair. It's labor. I'm a businessman. I have to see what this really is. It's labor. It's not a chair. The chair is the finished product. But why is it labor to me? Well, labor had to go into building that. And now I can sell that chair for $10. What did I do? I just transferred the value of that chair into a piece of paper that represents the labor that made that chair. So now I'm holding it in the form of paper that I can use kind of as a bartering system to create or buy something else. Maybe I want to buy a table. Well, I don't have enough labor to buy a table. I need to make 3 more chairs and convert those chairs into the paper. So now I have 4 chairs, the labor of building 4 chairs in the form of 4 pieces of paper that now I can buy a table. So I used my labor to create a table that I didn't actually build myself. But now I sold my chairs. I don't have anything to put around the table. So, but that's how it works. And what happens with a lot of this spending, For instance, money that is spent, let's say tax dollars, that is real money. And when that money is spent, it will stimulate wherever it's spent, whether it's spent in another country or whether it's spent in a neighborhood. That will stimulate the economy, but it's recycled money. It was earnings paid by someone. Someone took some of their labor and gave it to an entity that now budgeted, or, well, probably didn't even budget, but spent my labor, which I paid in the form of a tax. So it's recycled money. So now you're stimulating the economy with recycled money. And I'm not saying it's all bad. I mean, you need to do some of that. The service industry, you're providing a service. That's a little different than creating a product. I'm in the service industry. I don't make things, but I provide a service. So people give me their labor, money, for me to provide the service that I provide for them. So, but bottom line is, sooner or later, something's got to be grown or made, or something that can be used. That's really, really important. And you get too far away from that, you're looking at a potential danger.
Well, I was thinking about COVID, and this is really important to everybody listening, is to understand what went on with COVID. The government kind of threw money at us. And at that time, I was in the Bitcoin, and I'm still interested in it. But what happened is the Bitcoin went up artificially, so that value went up because there was more money to be had. And I'm kind of back to that island thing. When you're given a large sum of money that you think is for free, you decide to sit back and just relax. Instead of making chairs, now you're just, out in the sun, enjoying the weather. So if we're on an island, the one carpenter for that island decides to sit back, or maybe there's two. They both decide to sit back, and no chairs are made. So if no chairs are made and people need chairs and they have the money to buy it, some salesperson is going to look and find a set of chairs somewhere for a higher price. And so you're going to pay a higher price. And that's what happens when we put artificial money into a system. But here's how it really affects you. A house, and I'm just going to go in round terms, that was worth $100,000, 4 years later is $200,000. And I'm not exaggerating. It doubles in price very shortly when these kind of artificial things go on. So what our society is dealing with is so many young people cannot afford on their budget or their labor or what they can generate, they cannot afford a house. So everything changes in the economy because that expense has changed faster than their income. So they can work for a year and they still can't afford a house. It's just the percentages are too great. And so what's happened with our government, they've given out all this money and now we're paying for the cost. And the government doesn't really think in terms of let's stop, let's work through this. No, spend more. And so 4 years from now, if it's not put in check, your houses are going to cost 4 times as much as what they used to. And nobody will be able to afford things. And it's so important to understand really what the government is doing is they're outbidding themselves. They spend money, and that money becomes more and more expensive as they kind of inflate it. It's a terrible trap to fall in. And right now we're in the middle of it.
Yeah, and the other thing that will affect prices of things is interest rates. And, I'm not saying that this should or shouldn't happen, but the manipulation of the interest rates affects the number of dollars that are in circulation. So right now, the Federal Reserve raises interest rates. Why do they raise interest rates? Why do they keep them higher? Because they're trying to combat inflation. And so it makes that $100,000 home that was now $200,000. And again, these are just example numbers. These aren't the exact numbers. So let's say your $100,000 home went up to $200,000 because the interest rates went down. Well, that $100,000 home was costing me $1,000 a month. Yeah. Now I can buy a $200,000 home and still spend $1,000 a month. It's the same amount of labor per month that I'm spending for a home that's twice as much. Now, those numbers are not exactly how it would work, but it gives you an example of what I'm talking about. So when the interest rates go up, the Fed says we need to increase interest rates because we're trying to slow down inflation. Then the price of the home comes back down. And now the home is $150,000, but it still costs you that $1,000 a month. Why? Because you're paying more interest. So the home is $150,000. So that's just kind of in a nutshell how it works. And I mean, we're getting into some complicated economic issues, but that's how it works. How the economy is stimulated, how it's manipulated. And when I say manipulated, I don't mean that is a bad thing. But in the long run, if you do it too much, probably not going to be a favorable outcome.
Yeah, it just costs you more and more, and you get further behind. And I mean, I see in so many families, unless they already have a property, they can't get into a property because of these things. It just beyond reach, and that's really important. It's almost a social injustice that gets to be pretty pernicious. It's just not good in any way.
Yeah. And, you mentioned real estate. One of the best ways to halt inflation is to own real estate. Not everyone can own commercial real estate or even a home, but that's kind of a hedge against inflation because you've captured the labor and you've traded the labor for the property, and then it freezes right there. The price can go up and down, but it's still the same amount of labor that you put into purchasing that property. Anyway, Pastor, as always, we appreciate your input, and we will talk to you next time.
All right. Great.